Hey guys, how are you? This is Eric Bramlett with Bramlett Residential, and today we are here to talk about the Austin Metro market year to date for 2024 through the end of Q3. Talk about the methodology for 1 minute. We isolated this to resale transactions only, as the resale market behaves differently than the new construction market. And we looked at the year in review from Q1 to Q3 versus past years. We actually went all the way back to 2009 and looked at a 10-year historical average, and then looked at the years 2019 to present. Now, we bound each year to Q1 to Q3 so that we had an accurate look at the numbers, so it's a fair comparison. I'd like to thank Aaron Scruggs with Agent Intel, provided a really strong tool for us to easily get to this data, and it took far less time than it would normally have taken using only Matrix. Let's go ahead and dive right in. The first chart that we're reviewing shows us the sold units for the year. It's simply the number of sales in the year 2024 versus previous years, year to date. And this arguably tells the story most effectively. It shows just how few sales there are whenever you look at past years. Whenever we compare 2024 to 2021, which is the most recent memory of a different market, things look pretty horrible. The number of sales are down 44% whenever we compare today's market to the peak of 2021. But when we compare it to the 10-year average, which by the way looks very, very similar to 2019, we're down 24.4%. So I like to say only down 24.4%. That still is very significant. It's just not quite as bad as, well, not as bad at all as when compared to the boom market. Important to note that 2023 was also not a great year. The market began shifting and it turned very quickly in 2022. And in 2023, we saw a pretty down year as well. We're actually 5% lower this year in total sales than we were in 2023. So 2024 is shaping up to be probably the floor of this cycle. Looking at days on market to sell, this shows us the amount of time that each transaction now requires. Whenever we compare this to the boom market of 2021, it now takes sellers 4 times the amount of time to sell as it did during the peak of the boom. Whenever we compare that to the 10-year average, it takes 1.6 times the amount of time to sell, so 60% longer to sell today than in a normal market. This obviously affects sellers, and we hear DOM referenced most frequently when we are discussing listings and discussing sellers, but it also affects buyers. It affects the buy side of the transaction. There's a lot to choose from. Buyers take more time to select which property they want to buy, and there's understandable anxiety. There's anxiety about the market, anxiety about the economy, and it's just causing more buyers to take a longer time to choose which property they want to buy. The end result, just a longer relationship with your buyers and with your sellers, and the end result to buyers and sellers is that, hey, whenever you decide to sell this property, you want to go into this with the expectation this could be a 3 to 6 month, it could be a 3 to 6 month project versus in the past, a 1 to 2 month effort. Success rate is something that we don't hear talked about often enough, in my opinion. So success rate, it's simply the number of sellers that successfully sell versus the number of sellers that pull off of the market. And a normal market, the success rate is 81%, which is pretty interesting when you think about it. In a normal market, 1 out of 5 sellers don't ultimately sell. They withdraw or they let the listing expire for some reason. In today's market, 1/3 of the sellers that go on the market are not successful, meaning that they list, they never ultimately sell, and they withdraw for one reason or another. During the boom times in 2021, it was greater than 90%. It was a 91% success rate. So it's very important to discuss this with sellers to let them know that it's not simply a question of when they'll sell. Sometimes sellers don't sell, and today it's a good number of them. If you look at it and from another perspective, the failure rate is 33% for sellers today, and we're on par with 2023 with those numbers. But again, the 10-year average is a 19% failure rate among sellers. Sold volume is the dollar volume transacted in the market in any given year. So again, this is year to date through the end of September. And you can see that sold volume is actually up versus the 10-year average, and it's up versus 2019. This is almost entirely due to higher prices today. So prices have gone up. The number of sales have gone down very considerably. But the net result is that the dollar volume transacted today is higher than the 10-year average and higher than 2019. We're obviously lower than 2021 and 2020 and 2022. So during the boom times, the dollar volume sold was incredibly high, normal to come down from that peak. And it's nice to see that we are higher than the 10-year average. Want to point out that this doesn't take into account inflation, which does affect this somewhat. And whenever we talk about the dollar volume transacted as higher than the 10-year average, it feels a little bit like reminding buyers and sellers that mortgage rates aren't that bad when we look at them historically, that, hey, at least we're not at 13% interest rates that we were in the early 80s. But still, good news is good news, and we want to point it out. This is the really good news, and this does a great job of showing that we are not selling a bill of goods whenever we tell people that real estate is a wonderful investment. This shows you the median sold price in the Austin Metro since 2019. And the chart does an excellent job of telling the story of the COVID boom and the COVID correction. So prices went up very considerably between 2020 and 2022. When the Fed began tightening rates, whenever they began tightening monetary policy, it corrected very quickly. And it corrected entirely by the end of 2022. And we've now had pricing stability for over 18 months. 2024 is shaping up to have a slightly higher median sold price than the year 2023. So you are likely in good shape with regard to the value of your property. The big question everyone asks is what's next? And it's a dangerous question to address because we have to look into our crystal ball. We're also not going to dig into leading indicators too much today. It's a subject for another day and an entire podcast possibly. But the three variables that we're looking at the most, and the three leading indicators that will do the best job of predicting what will happen with the market are mortgage rates, the election, and jobs. So mortgage rates, we obviously want them to go down, and they are heavily affected by Fed monetary policy. Great to see that the Fed began lowering the Fed rate in September. And while mortgage rates are not directly tied to the Fed rate, they're heavily affected by it. So as the Fed continues to lower the rate, we will see mortgage rates go down. The election. So the greatest effect of the election on the market is the run-up to the election, simply anxiety over who's going to win. So the election anxiety will start to come down after the election, and we hope to see that disappear entirely, no matter who's won, by Q1 of next year. The job market is the big question mark. The job market in Austin a normal job market is incredibly robust here. Typically for decades, we've had a large number of people moving to Austin for employment. We've had major employers moving here because of our high quality of living, relatively low cost of living, and high educated workforce. None of those things have changed. What has changed is the tech industry has been on a hiring freeze, and now the tech industry has begun laying off, and we need to see that reverse. We don't know when that will happen. We do know that that is also affected by the Fed rate. So as the Fed continues to ease monetary policy, we will see hiring return at some point in time. Also like to point out that we don't need to see all three variables correct in order for the market to improve. We will almost certainly see mortgage rates improve between now and the end of next year. We will almost certainly see election anxiety decrease or go away between now and into Q1 next year. So those two factors alone will help the market start to improve. And whenever we see the job market come back, that's whenever we can expect Austin's normally robust real estate market to return. And we can't wait for that. So how do you strategize that? If you're a buyer, you're in pretty good shape. If you're a buyer, the ball's in your court. And I think that you will see this as a buying opportunity in retrospect. If you're a seller, you likely have a pretty good mortgage rate. So unless you have to sell for one reason or another, you can set your floor. And if you're not able to sell it at that price, then you can simply pull off of the market and you can continue living in the house, or you can rent it. If you have to sell for some reason, very important to become very realistic about price and to make sure that you're doing everything correctly. You have to make sure that your marketing is 100% dialed in, property presentation, property condition is as great as it can possibly be, and that showing instructions are as easy as they possibly can be. If you've done all of those things, then the only lever you really have to pull is going to be price. If you're a real estate professional, there's really only one thing to do, and that's continue to work on productive activities, which generally are pipeline building and competency activities. If you guys would like to discuss any of this with me, I'd love to. If you're a buyer or a seller who'd like to talk about your specific situation, please reach out to me. If you're an industry professional who'd like to strategize your own business, then please reach out to me. It's one of my favorite subjects. If there's anything I can do for anybody here, please just reach out to me and let me know how I can help. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I thank you very much for watching if you made it this far. I'm Eric Bramlett. I hope you have an awesome day, awesome rest of your week, and an awesome rest of your year. Thank you so much.